As we should have known from the last chapter of Vinland Saga, that reached such a high point, such a conclusion climax of so many things, so many story threads, and so many themes of Vinland Saga that have been growing up until that point, and ended in such a perfect prime moment that I even stated that it could have been the end of the series from one point of view. And actually, from a point of view, it might have been, considering where we're going. And I think that it was very important to note that that chapter in particular, because of that, because of such a high point that it reached, that was probably the highest and most successful and most peaceful that Vinland and Thorfinn's character is going to get, because we know, I don't really know actually much of the actual true history. I've been trying really hard not to hit the Wikipedia pages to look it up because I really want to be surprised as I go through the story. But yeah, I mean, you can't imagine that it could go any higher than that peak that it had, other than maybe, seeing Thorfinn and Gudrid actually have their child and kind of having that moment, which, by the way, I was thinking, I don't think anybody has been born on Vinland yet, so technically these are all people of the Norse, and nobody has actually been born on the new continent. There is no, how do you want to call it, like Vinland citizen yet, right? So is Thorfinn and Gudrid's child, is that going to be literally the first person born on, the first like Norse, white person born on the soil of Vinland? So that's a really interesting concept as well. And I think that is kind of really fitting with the fact that Thorfinn has gone through this entire journey to get here, to be able to create this land, and the first person that's literally born of that land, sort of like cultivating and creating the wheat and the food and stuff like that. Long-term cultivation, creation is more difficult than, or creation is longer and a more difficult process than destruction is, where Thorfinn has known so much destruction in his life, and the fact that he has created the settlement, created these the citizens here, being able to live in peace, created the food that they are all working on. They've all worked together to create this. The last chapter we saw the process of creating the bread and everything, and now even creating a child, which it's not really difficult to create a child. You just got to find someone that wants to do it with you. But anyways, like the whole point is like it all comes together, man, and it all makes a lot of sense. This chapter, however, this is where things are going to start going downhill. Now, this chapter begins with Thorfinn's kind of setting up a gravestone to basically represent everybody that he had wronged in the past and killed in the past, and using only the letters that he'd known. Because remember, Thorfinn, as intelligent as he may be at leading a group of people, or as intelligent as he may be as understanding and communication and, body language and everything that he's had to learn growing up in the circumstances he did, remember, he never really had a proper education because his entire childhood was essentially ripped away from him after Thor's death and everything. So I find these little things interesting. That's why I always thought it would have been cool to kind of play into a little bit more of Thorfinn and Gudrid sort of falling for each other, because Thorfinn would have no context of how relationships work or anything, because he was so far separated from that. But anyways, the point is that he created this gravestone with the only letters that he knew to basically represent everybody that he had wronged in the past. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing as well. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot more scenes and a lot more chapters kind of dealing with the things haunting Thorfinn's past and how much he doesn't want to acknowledge them any further or try to get away from them. And it even hurts him now still, even after Hild has essentially forgiven him for everything that he did to her, and being able to come full circle and call him a true warrior and what those words really mean to him. But like I was saying in the last chapter review also, it's not up to Thorfinn to decide whether or not he is redeemed. It's up for the world, the universe, the individual people that he's harmed. So there's going to be so many people within his past that he's never going to know if he was ever going to be redeemed, and that's the weight that he has to carry with him. Now, on top of that, we see in this chapter the one character that was spared from Canute a few chapters back was traveling to Markland, and I didn't really know where Markland was, so I looked up a map of how it looked at the time, and it was sort of like there's one settlement called, I think, Helmond or something like that, and then there's Vinland, and then Markland is beneath that. So he comes back from saying that he was going to go to Markland, but they couldn't even dock because they were pelted with arrows. Now, nobody died, nobody was hurt, but they were basically saying you're not allowed to put your ships here on the shore. But there's already a settlement there, so Thorfinn's very curious about what's going on. He knows that the arrow belongs to the Lu Nu, the same native tribe that they've been interacting with and basically becoming friends with. So he goes down there, and what they see is very strange because the entire settlement has been pelted with arrows. All the arrows are there, but there's no bodies, there's no corpses, there's no animals. Everyone just seems to be gone, as if they just disappeared. And so what does this mean? So they search around. Thorfinn doesn't see anybody. He doesn't sense anybody watching them. He doesn't see anybody there. And all the arrows were left, which Evyar is with him as well, because Evyar was going down there like, look, hey, this is what I've been warning you about, man. This is what I'm saying. Like, they're going to attack. I'm going to be there, because Evyar, I really like Evyar as a character, because Evyar is not a bad person. He is just somebody that recognizes how dangerous the world is and adamantly wants to protect those around him. Now, he does have that excitement and adrenaline for war and combat like many of the people did during this era, and I understand that. And yes, there is an aspect of him that's kind of looking for a fight, but what it comes down to is this is survival. This is brutality. Like, we're living in an era where violence basically rules the world, so you always have to be kind of ready for that possibility. And I really like that Evyar, he's not really being painted as a villain or an antagonist. He probably will ultimately become an antagonist, or the person that kind of like really sparks the combat with the natives. But I really love how they're painting him as somebody with his own views, his own ideals of the world, and his own ideas of how to prevent this from happening and how it opposes Thorfinn's. Really, really good concept. Also brings in a lot of great discussion for people reading it and everything. Like, who do you identify with more? Who's more in the right? Because it's such a morally gray area, so we don't really know. But the strangest thing is that everyone's gone. So to me, I would assume that this means that they were driven away, that they probably had to sail away. But why didn't they come to Vinland? Why didn't they go to the other settlement? Like, why did they just go right across the ocean? Did they go right back to Greenland? Like, or wherever they're from? I don't know. So that's the strangest thing about it. But it seems to me the reason why they have the arrows spread everywhere is so you can't do anything here. You can't even walk around. You can't. It's basically saying that this shore is off limits. You are not allowed to be here. That's what it seems like to me. And if actually the natives accomplish that without killing anybody, that is essentially going along with the same idea that Thorfinn had, being that, we are going to protect what's ours, we're going to protect our people, but we're not going to actually hurt or kill anybody. We're just going to let them know what the situation is. So, in a strange way, it's actually kind of using Thorfinn's philosophy against him, And I think Evyar makes a really good point at the end of the chapter where he says Vinland doesn't belong to anybody. Which, even though Thorfinn has been very peaceful and very kind and very considerate, at the same time, he sailed across the ocean, he came into a land that he wasn't from, and he took over part of it. Now, he didn't do this by force, and, he's made friends with the natives and everything, and so, it wasn't done in a malicious way, but that is what he did. He took over a piece of land that wasn't his, and, Evyar is basically saying that, it doesn't belong to anybody. It's just land. It's just earth. We live in a world where we think we can lay claim to everything. And it really sort of makes Thorfinn think, am I going to be able to do this long term? Is this something that's even possible? And then reflecting it even back to the title of the chapter, which is the 1,000-year journey begins. And that's the vision that the shaman saw. He saw, basically 1,000 years into the future of all the things that are going to happen on this continent. He saw the destruction of his tribes. He saw the selling of weapons to his tribes. He saw the combat. He saw the violence and the weaponry and, everything evolve over time, all the way up to being actually able to see, the nuclear explosion, right? So whatever he's smoking, I want some of it because I really want to look into the year 3022 and see how much more fucked up humanity is. Also, someone pointed out that this chapter takes place in 1022, I believe. So it literally is 1,000 years from present day. So that's also an interesting concept. But anyways, I really love this chapter. I loved where it was going, and I can't get enough of this series of Vinland Saga. I will say, right now in my top 10 manga, Vinland Saga is, I think, number 7. But I swear, if this manga sticks this landing and this arc continues to be as good as the setup and potential here is, Vinland's going to go into my top 5, maybe top 4. It really is. I love this series. I absolutely adore this series so much, and it just continues to get better and better, in my opinion. And I know that some people say that the most recent chapters aren't good, but they're only if they really are invested in the story, if they're invested in Thorfinn and what's happening, I don't see how that's possible. But anyways, if you read chapter, I believe, 192 of Vinland Saga, let me know what you think about it down below. What do you think happened to the settlers of Markland? Where did they go? Were they driven away? And what do you think is next for Thorfinn's decision? So put all that in the comments below if you read the chapter. Thank you a lot for watching this video, guys. And if you don't mind, please like the video and share it to other Vinland Saga fans. Not a lot of people talking about Vinland Saga on YouTube, so I want to get the word out more. I want more people to get into this series and read the most recent chapters. So let's spread the word, spread the gospel of Vinland Saga. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Other than that, I'll talk to you next time.